nice summary of Tonden, deep practice. Lots to talk about Tonden, but maybe I just want to emphasize one thing. Why CHO practice or the CHO tradition I call extreme version of Tonden. This unique combination or the unique mixture of ultimate reality and conventional reality or relative reality. So when we eject the consciousness, then we rest. This CHO Mahamudra I call Mahamudra, ultimately who we are. So understanding of who we truly are is so important. Without that glimpse into something beyond this small self, if I use the Zen terminology, small self and big self, this big self, after ejecting consciousness, then we realize Prajna Paramita, we are non-dual with this ultimate reality. From that vintage point, from there, you do all great compassionate activities of offering of your body, right? So that relative activity, relative level. So that the Tonden, giving up entirety of who you are. But then the one who is doing is this ultimate self. You can say the big self. It's so torturing without knowing that the Buddha nature, even glimpse of I have this Buddha nature. I'm this. I'm nothing but this suffering me. Then try to do that. Drowning mother, drowning self cannot rescue that drowning self. Don't you think? Therefore, it's so important to grasp the entirety of the CHO journey. You know what I mean? Therefore, I'm going to bring this one to today's context. This theoretical understanding of the CHO practice is also very important. Why the Buddha taught the second turning of the wheel? So why important? Yeah, without understanding this, we suffer. Right? These philosophy or theoretical understanding all are meant for liberation and enlightenment. All these great philosophers are practitioners seeking for liberation and enlightenment for the sake of all beings. They are not teaching or thinking and presenting philosophy for the sake of philosophy. That might be a little bit different from our understanding of philosophy or theoretical or dogmatic kind of understanding. In general, it's not like that. That's the first thing I want to say. Especially the Geru tradition from other traditions, I said, not to criticize, stereotyped. Geru is only doing a debate or doing all this philosophical argument, nothing but that. No, just we have to kind of cut through that sort of diametrical kind of understanding. Practice and the theoretical understanding go together. So let's get into this. What is the second turning of the wheel of Dharma? The core teaching of Madhyamika. Some of you are new here, all this terminology coming up. Madhyamika is a middle way view, middle way. Middle means like a two extreme, in positive, negative, for example, then the middle way. So that's one thing he taught. In other words, we are talking about the Buddha's realization. If you recall, Buddha's journey started with looking at the suffering, all these different kind of suffering from the palace. Then he wanted to say, how I can find a solution to this dilemma of samsara or suffering. Do I have to go through this too? I don't want to. How can I? Then he left a comfortable palace. Then he started a search. Right? This is one of the outcomes of his realization, Madhyamika understanding, rejection of too extreme, to avoid the conceptual pitfalls. So that's very important and reflected on CHO practice. You can say that nihilism or nihilism, the belief that nothing exists at all in any form. Back all days, Buddha's time, there was such a philosophy there. Nothing exists. Everything is empty. So that's one kind of extreme. The other extreme is permanent self. I exist. This permanent, unchanging self or essence. I have something here. That sort of philosophy there too. What Buddha's realization was to cut through the two, rejecting the two extremes. That's called Madhyamika. Then later on, Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti, those great masters, and our forefathers, you can say, started to define that philosophies. Then finally came to this so-called Prasangika view that's considered to be the highest, maybe the most defined view of philosophy in this tradition. So that's one thing I want you to remember. So the Madhyamika, rejection of two extreme. And of course, what is emptiness? Of course, this is a big subject, but just for the sake of simplicity, emptiness is not nothingness. If nothing exists, I cannot communicate with you, I cannot do anything. But if everything exists, not changing, then we kind of conflict. We cannot, there's no place for me to change and communicate either. Right? Emptiness is the emptiness of so-called intrinsic existence, the self-existing nature, inherent nature. So empty of intrinsic existence. Okay, that's very important. This word svabhava. Svabhava is a self-existing, separate me here, separate phenomena out there. This kind of thing that's negated. That means things do not possess any independent permanent existence or essence, but arise dependently through a web of causes and conditions. So emptiness and dependent arising goes, you can say, the hands in hand, or the two sides of the same coin. Dependent origination, pratyeka samutpada, that's the Sanskrit word, dependent relativities. We even bring down to our own level, we know we are so related, relative existence, right? Kandora, I don't exist me as a teacher, for example, right? In relation to my mom, I'm just a daughter, and in relation to you, could be friend, right? So there's no such a thing as Kandora, which possesses this inherent, existing, permanent, independent self here. So everything relative, something like that. Very simplistic way of saying. Make sure emptiness is not nothingness. Actually, sometimes the teacher translate emptiness is openness. That's also a problem, because shunyata doesn't imply the openness. Then the prasangika view comes in, deconstruct everything, anything, nothing exists, even dhrutam. Dhrutam means any tiny bit of inherent existence negated. So that's the prasangika view. Prasangika view with Madhyamika. Prasangika approach is, I say, the most defined, most deconstruct, cut, and focusing on refuting the inherent existence of a phenomena, not only self, and the phenomena, everything. Phenomena means everything other than me, other than the self, everything. What the most defined version of philosophical school did is by showing the logical flaw, logical contradictions. That's why it's called the consequence school. Consequences holding such a view. If you hold that self-existent self, then logically what's happened? Things do not exist. As I said, bump each other, for example. That's just one way to say it. Very much a defined version of it. Madhyamika school teaching during the second turning of the wheel of Dharma emphasized the emptiness of all phenomena, not only the self, everything, teacher, even the Buddhas, the Kimis, your partner, everything, and the importance of dependent originations and the rejection of extreme, just as I said. Then the Prasangika view defined these teachings by avoiding positive assertions. Whenever we say something positively, flow goes with it. It has consequences. So focusing on the constructive arguments to reveal the true nature of reality, which is emptiness. So that method. This understanding of emptiness transforms one's perception of reality and is central to achieving liberation in Buddhist practice. Yeah, just leave it that for this first question. I don't know you had a chance to look at the questions. The first one was what is it? The second turning wheel of Dharma, Madhyamika perspective and Prasangika view. What are the core teaching? I've said that. How does the Prasangika view within Madhyamika differ from other view? I said a little bit. I touched a little bit, maybe one line. Can you explain the concept of emptiness? I also mentioned what the emptiness entails. I'm just gonna zip through to cover these topics. Of course, each are expandable. Now, second one is the significance of the Great Mother, Prajnaparamita, in the context of middle way and CHO practice. You just received the CHO empowerment. Then first thing you will engage in the CHO journey is this 5 Daikini retreat manual, retreat practice, with the first Prajnaparamita. You accumulate a mantra of Prajnaparamita. Significance of Prajnaparamita. She is also called, I said she, but initially Prajnaparamita was not personified. It was an embodiment of what we just talked about, this ultimate view, emptiness. Perfection of wisdom, sometimes called, is a central concept in Mahayana Buddhism and is often personified. You can see the picture in Tibetan form as a 4 arms, and sometimes you can see the Indian form, 2 arms and sitting as a Great Mother. Also Yumchenmo, that's also her name, and representing the embodiment of this wisdom, transcendent wisdom, prajna and shelap in Tibetan. Her significance in the context of Madhyamika view or the middle way view and the CHO practice is profound. 3 things I want to say about Prajnaparamita. First one is embodiment. She's the embodiment of emptiness. So when we practice the 5 Daikini, first we become a Prajnaparamita. First we relate to this big self I was talking about. After you digest the consciousness, we rest, completely merge your body, speech, and mind with this Prajnaparamita. That's the first thing we need to do, in a sense. First, we need to connect to this embodiment of emptiness. Prajnaparamita is traditionally revered as a source of all wisdom teachings in Mahayana Buddhism. Tantric Buddhism is a Mahayana Buddhism, extreme version of Mahayana. Make sure you understand that, no different from Mahayana. It's part of Mahayana. She embodies the understanding of emptiness, which is the realization of what is it? All phenomena and the self, and also devoid of intrinsic existence. This realization is a core of the CHO practice, which avoid extremes, eternalism and nihilism, emphasizing the interdependent nature of reality. You started to have a little idea about that through this repetition. Prajnaparamita is also called mother of all Buddhas. Why mother? Why mom? Sometimes called of all Buddhas. Because Prajnaparamita represents the wisdom. Without this transcendent wisdom, Shelap, Buddha was never born. Right? Buddha is born. Buddha became a Buddha because of this realization. And also bodhicitta. Of course, 2 kinds of bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, there's no bodhisattva. Without becoming a bodhisattva, there will be no Buddha. Okay, anyway, mother of all Buddha. So you can say the source of all awakened ones. It's so important, right? It's source and Without there's no baby. There's no full version of bodhisattva, which is Buddha. Also, inspiration of CHO practice. CHO means cutting through. This is a spiritual practice. We talked about how CHO developed in Tibet, and now it came to the West. CHO is deeply influenced by the teaching of Prajnaparamita. Prajnaparamita itself is the name of the text. That text teaches emptiness. Because the central goal of CHO is what is it? What we are trying to do through CHO practice. To cut through this ego and attachment and fear. Attachment to the self, directly confronting and transforming fears and obstacles. Therefore, we need this wisdom. This wisdom is a direct antidote, you can say, to fear. Yeah, of course, in a relative level, maybe going to the therapist and psychological perspective, we can deal with all the chop up all the branches, but the core of this fear is this grasping to the self, for example. If we release, we complete understanding that this self is a fantasy. This self is like a monster under the bed. And the kids are afraid of that monster. We are like those kids. Therefore, we have to see, really, is that so? Is that the self, the monster is under the bed? We have to open our eyes and see. Then all these great masters showed us how to do it, step by step. Of course, each of us has a different karmic momentum. Some have already done in the past life. Sometimes sit. Then they just hear the one word, those higher teaching from the great masters. Then, boom, awaken. But we wish we are all like that, right? Those called the chikcharva, simultaneous realizer. But most of us are not like that. So we're gonna follow. We're gonna try to understand it. Therefore, we have this kind of class and try to understand what's the core teaching of Buddhism. There are lots talk about the Prajna Paramita. Say that just summary. So the Great Mother, Prajna Paramita, hold the significance in the middle way and the CHO practice. High embodiment of transcendental wisdom and the realization of emptiness directly influence the foundational principle of CHO. The teachings of Prajna Paramita provide the philosophical and the practical basis. So that's the thing. This is not just meant for the philosophical argument or philosophical for the sake of philosophy. It's a practical basis for CHO practice to cut through the ego and the delusions, transforming the understanding of a self and the reality in alignment with Bodhisattva path. We all aspire to be on the Bodhisattva path. We just received the CHO empowerment. We received the Bodhisattva vows. So Bodhisattva is that one who have two wings, wisdom and compassion. Not only just compassion, then Bodhisattva cannot fly. Shantideva said, from joy of the city to the joy of the city. What kind of wise person ever tired of that? So that's the Bodhisattva spirit. Without those two wings, we cannot fly, we cannot be a service of all beings. So we need to understand that wisdom as well, not only have an open heart, open-heartedness, and also that wisdom comes along with Bodhisattva. Not the idiot. Trungpa said idiot compassion. Yeah, not like that. All right, so that's the Prajna Paramita. Then we move to this idea of the self, nature of the self. I already touched a little bit. So this is quite a big subject. Only I would say is the foundational teaching, Mahayana teaching, and also Mahayana, but the tantric context, all these evolutions, the self. But also you can say the basic idea is that this self. What do you consider to be the self? This self-personal identity. When somebody asks, who are you? Of course, we say the names and this and that, but in the context of philosophy, what we consider the self is a composite, or the mixture or combination of the body and mind. You can say two things, body and mind. But then those body and mind are divided into five, called five aggregates, or five skandhas, you might have heard. Form, there is a physical form, rupa, sensation, vedana, perception, sanya, is the Pali language and foundational teaching, mental formation, sanskara, and consciousness, vijnana or vijnana, those five. So we person consist of those five, combination of five, related, consist of all these five. Those previous masters impose or put those together, and then this self exists. Then what he did and the followers of him did to analyze. If body, me, is a body, what the false consequence come, this logical consequence. I might have a guided meditation of that searching for the self and try to find this thief going to the room. Anybody remember? So you can do, I think it might be in the book, volume 1, Search for the Self. Those things are very important to give us insight. Oh, self, me, is not just simply body or not simply mind. Then what is it? Or combination of body, mind? No, then try to search the self. The self, it comes as an outcome of this analysis or analyzing the exercises, searching. Then there's no such a thing called the self, empty room. Anyway, so that also important. And the impermanence, those are you very familiar, but that impermanent, everything including what we consider the self is impermanent and constantly changing. Those are important. Like early teaching, Buddha taught the selflessness and the impermanence, or impermanence or changing nature of everything. There is no enduring essence that remains unchanged over time. Like that we can kind of relate to. Then use that understanding of impermanence for understanding the selflessness. Like if everything impermanent or everything changing, there's no such a thing as a permanent self, no such a thing as me here, no such a thing as self-existing stuff out there. And also depending arising, we already talked about this, depending originates, everything related. The concept of self is understood as arising dependently on various causes and conditions. Everything based on the causes and conditions. It has no independent existence, but is contingent upon a web of interrelated factors. So use those understanding or sense to understand emptiness, okay? And the suffering. That's another thing Buddha taught. Dukkha, clinging to the notion of permanent self leads to suffering. Like clinging onto what does not exist as existing. That's the problem. That leads to the suffering. Even you just step back and think about it. Everything, when you suffer, trace the cause that come down to clinging onto the permanent self and the permanent enemies, permanent somebody out there or in here. So because it is contrary to the true nature of reality. True nature of reality is empty, impermanent, and dependent arising. So the understanding and realizing this selflessness is crucial for overcoming this self-suffering and achieving liberation, nirvana. Okay, so you started to have all the puzzle come together, more down to earth level. Then now method, unique method of CHO used in CHO practice to cut through ego. The ego, we are using this terminology as the self. It's kind of fantasy, but we created this monster called the self, egos.